for me, I don't want, when I'm consuming news, I don't want your opinion.
Yeah.
Just tell me the news. And then I will come up with my own opinions about what I think about what happened.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what we're seeing today, and people are getting turned off by it, and more people are coming to podcasts like Beyond the Bite and others, is that, just give me the information that I need, what happened, what's important for me to know, and then I'll make that decision. But when you have outlets that are already skewed, they already have an agenda, they're already trying to paint a picture on what we should be thinking, trying to craft our opinion for us. I think that's what's turning people off.
I think you're right. I think that I always saw my job as laying out both sides and letting people at home decide, realizing that there's always shades of gray.
Now that you are free of the bonds and shackles of your journalistic career, you do have opinions. There's a lot that's happening in our city, and I think there's a lot of excitement around it. But so my question to the two of you is, what are you looking forward to in 2026? Demonte Alexander and Steve Spriester, welcome to Beyond the Bite. Demonte's a regular around here, but Steve, this is your first time on the show, so welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, Eddie. I didn't think you were ever going to ask. Apparently, I had to leave TV for that to happen. Yeah. If I would have known that, it would have been one of the reasons I left KSAT is to be on Beyond the Bite.
Well,
now you can say you made it. You made it.
Now.
So let's talk about that. KSAT did a beautiful tribute to your 30-year career with them, and then right after that, you abruptly left the station.
Yeah.
I kid, but no, they did. After you told them you were leaving, they did a beautiful tribute.
It was beyond what I expected. Listen, I still have, I still think of KSAT fondly. I mean, I was there for 30 years, started as just a general assignment reporter. I love the fact they dug up some of those reports where I'm wearing a beeper and pleated jeans. And it just goes back to show how long I've been here and how my heart is with San Antonio and with KSAT. And for them to do that, I thought it was above and beyond, and I certainly appreciated it. And that last day, there were just things that we were doing at 5, 6, and 10, and it was an emotional day.
It was
for
moving.
Me. And, Myra and Adam Caskey and Stefania and Larry Ramirez. And, I think back to Steve Brown and Greg Simmons and Ursula Perry and Leslie Mouton. They all were at the station that day. Brown didn't make it, but the rest of them came to the station to say goodbye. And, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I still have 3 newscasts I've got to get through. How am I going to do this? I'm supposed to keep it together. And so it was just a special goodbye. And I have no regrets about my decision. It just seemed like it was time to do something else. There were some things I wanted to get done at KSAT before I left. And I checked those boxes. And
was the mayoral election one of them?
It was one of them. Yeah, that was a big election. And you guys have both been on our election night live stream on KSAT that I started in a conference room with some bunting and 2 mics. Way back when. That was one of them. I did a special on 50 years after the fall of Saigon with some of the local Edgewood veterans that were in Vietnam. And 50 years later, a lot of things fade. I did not want the memory of what these guys and women sacrificed to be lost. So we wrapped that up in April. And I was doing a thing called Know My Neighborhood that I wanted to get off the ground. So there were just some things that I wanted to check off before I left. And I wouldn't have left for just anything.
Well, we're going to come back to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to ask you is you were watching those sort of retrospective, beyond what you went through career-wise, it had to be fascinating to watch how the city changed.
Oh, yeah.
There were skyline shots and other things that, I was watching, and you thought, wow, there's a bunch of buildings that are missing that are there now.
But wow, Steve's old.
Well, I've got from my TV days, I have video of doing some reporting with a full head of hair, and tinted glasses. And my wife loves this video because she says it's proof that I've always seen the world through rose-colored glasses.
That's awesome.
That's nice.
But no, it had to have given you, a different perspective just to watch how much has changed, how the media landscape, you and your how you progress through your career, as well as how the city has changed.
And that's the thing. I mean, when I think back, just some of the things that I've seen happen in San Antonio. I mean, I was here for all of the Spurs championships. Got to cover a couple of them in Miami. I've been here for so many mayors. Bill Thornton was the mayor when I started, and I remember him shushing me for doing a live shot in the upper chamber
of the
during
city council
at 5:00.
Yeah,
and I didn't realize how we were supposed to do them or not do them. And the mayor stopped the meeting and said, "Whoever that is, can you get him to quiet down?" And so I realized I needed to go to more of a golf voice, a golf course. Okay, on the first tee we have that kind of thing, and then but just. Yeah, I mean, the Frost Tower wasn't here. I mean, there were so many things that San Antonio has accomplished over the years. And, Eddie, when I moved here, I knew of the Alamo, David Robinson and George Gervin, and Henry Cisneros. Those were what I kind of knew about San Antonio.
That was your frame of reference.
That was my frame of reference. And when I moved here, I just, I'm still in love with this community. I'm still in love with what it's all about and the diversity, not just the cultural diversity, but also the diversity of opinion, how diverse even the landscape is. One of the first things I did when I moved here is I drove 1604 all the way around and 410 all the way around. Of course, when I drove 1604 all the way around back then, it didn't connect. So I had to kind of go off and, and wander around a little bit. But I mean, you get a sense for the city. I mean, you could swear you're in 4 different cities when you're on 410 and you drive around, and it just is a city that, I mean, I have thoroughly enjoyed. And, now that I've moved past my TV career, we have no plans to leave.
And you're one thing too is I think no matter how long you live here, we're creatures of habit, Demonte, and so we get into our routines, going from home to work and stopping at the H-E-B or the Walgreens or the your normal stops along the way, and then you go on assignment or you go see somebody or you have to go to a meeting or something, and you end up in a part of town that you didn't even know existed, or a part of town that's extremely impoverished because you live in your bubble and you haven't been exposed to that in a long time. So the parts of the city are that really run the gamut of the socioeconomic scale.
Yeah, it does. And I think, what reminds me of that, Eddie, is back during the bond when you were the tri-chair of the 2017, 2018 bond.
2017.
And so our buddy, Christian Archer,
Yep,
plucked me from City Hall.
my now boss.
Yeah, he plucked me from City Hall and said, "Hey, man, we need somebody on the ground to really get the message out about the bond." And so what that required of me as an outreach director for that bond, is to go to every single neighborhood around San Antonio. And I had to build a speakers bureau of Cheryl Scully, Mike, and all those folks who gave us the information to pass out to the residents. And that would wake up on a Saturday morning and go speak at a library with 20 people in it. But that took me from the west side to the east side to the north side, and communities I didn't know existed in this town. And it helped me be more familiar with who San Antonio truly is and all the different ideas and cultures, and what one person may see as green, the other side may see it as yellow, and that's just the makeup of the city.
I consider Demonte a good friend. I don't know if he feels the same way about me, but when I came up with the idea of Know My Neighborhood, that was kind of the idea, is that San Antonio has so many diverse neighborhoods and so many different parts of town, but when you drill down on it, the concerns are the same.
So just for those who aren't familiar, this is where you dedicate a newscast. You're doing it remotely in a neighborhood area, from a different part of town.
Right. I don't think KSAT does it anymore, but we decided that we were going to dedicate once a month to one neighborhood an hour show. And, we did everything from Alamo Ranch to South San, from
Lotus.
Yeah, Dignity Hills to Gray Forest.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, you go into some of these neighborhoods and they don't have sidewalks. They don't have curbs. They don't have proper drainage. You go into other neighborhoods and their concerns are much different. But it's all about public safety. It's all about taxes. It's all about, just the basics.
And I think when Steve started this conversation, Steve and I talk a lot about, hey, man, what do you think about this? We just bounced out. And we talked, he said, man, we really want to get the news station out of the news station. We want to take it to the neighborhoods, give the community access to us and let them be able to talk freely about what they care about. It's not so much complaining, but sometimes even as a council person or a mayor, you can't be everywhere. And you need the community to come out and say, hey, man, it's flooding over here on this block, and no one knows about it, right? And so I thought that was the most beautiful thing about that program is that it gave people access to the news station to where those concerns or even some of those issues that are public safety issues when it comes to flooding, they can have a platform to talk about those so they could be addressed. So I thought that was a very, very great program.
Yeah. So before you started having Demonte on the power panel on election night, had you guys met? Because you used to go on a lot when you had Bare Facts, which is another Christian Archer. This is not the Christian Archer show, by the way.
Well, you're going to have to tell him that.
Need to hit him up for sponsorship. We're talking about it all the time.
Christian Archer.
You think you answered your own question there is the reason why I met Steve in the manner that I met Steve was because of Bare Facts. And so at that time, every major city in America has, in which you were part of our committee and everything, Eddie, had a polling organization that measured the climate and attitudes of the population. San Antonio didn't have one at the time. And so when we created that, we felt that it was important to have credibility built into that.
And I'm trying to remember the one in Houston.
The Rice Kinder Institute.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they, what do they call it's like the social index or social economic index or something. Mm-hmm. It's to kind of gauge how's the community doing, is it prospering, is poverty an issue, what do people care about, what are the issues, and that sort of thing.
Right. And now this is right off the backs of COVID as well. And so when you talk about the timing of this, where we really need to ask questions in the community on, hey, are you needing anything? Are you suffering? What's going on? How can we help? This polling was just spot on in terms of the types of questions we need to be asking for San Antonio, not for just in that moment, but the future of San Antonio would look like. And so KSAT was one of those first ones. We went in. I remember that meeting. We went in and Christian, he could sell ice to an Eskimo, man. He went in with this big grandiose idea and said, look, guys, this could be transformative. Look what we can do. And Steve was in at hello. He's like I'm in, but we know we gotta get this thing approved. And, thankfully they did. And we had a lot of fun with that podcast.
When you did the poll, and then the poll was fascinating just from whether you're a political junkie or you just care about your community.
It was very issue-oriented. Like some polls are personality horse race oriented, and we had some of that. But we also had approval rates for, the mayor, for the
CPS,
sheriff, for
SAWS.
CPS, for SAWS, for the city council.
Public safety.
Public safety. And rank issues. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the most surprising things that we found, although it's not that surprising now, was homelessness was so high on that list. And, there's a lot that comes with homelessness. Were they worried about people being homeless on the street? Were they worried about people panhandling on their block? Were they worried about the public safety issue of it? All of that is kind of rolled into homelessness. But at KSAT, we had done more of a horse race kind of poll a few years before that. It was back when Tim Banwolf and Ed Garza were running for mayor. And our poll showed that Garza was up like 10 or 12 points. And I remember Tim Banwolf just railing on our poll and just not happy at all with what our poll results showed. And then sure enough, election day comes and he ends up losing by double digits. And we were doing that. We had access to doing polls more often then. And then it kind of went away. And I had a conversation with Christian and subsequently with Demonte, and said, I wish there was a way we could take the pulse of what's happening in San Antonio and Bexar County. Because since we've done that poll, there's not really any comprehensive polling of what matters to people in our community.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a general idea, but we're really we have, politicians that are telling us what they think is important to us. And so I really see Bare Facts to me and Know My Neighborhood were really grassroots approaches to what matters to people.
And if you can remember, this was off the backs of actually that poll was instrumental in the aquifer vote. Because I remember they couldn't poll it, for legal issues, but we could.
Yeah.
And so we polled it, and the community overwhelmingly supported the aquifer, which is why Ron made a deal with, Hope and I think his former mayor Cisneros, Secretary Cisneros, on how to move this project forward. And
that's when Hope Andrade
right.
was chair of the VIA board,
right.
And they were supposed to get the sales tax money,
correct.
But it got pushed 2 years down the road because they wanted to use it for this other purpose.
Because obviously they saw the community cared about water and the aquifer, so that needed to be taken care of. But also we need to handle transportation infrastructure, which now via that sales tax, ad valorem tax would go to VIA.
Yeah,
so,
it also, we did polling right after the February freezes where, we lost power and we lost water. And we saw CPS Energy's approval rates go from like 70% to
it was 75%.
40%.
Yeah.
And, they responded to our polling. Like they could see what the community had going on and kind of changed their messaging. And even today, they're more responsive of the fact there's even a thunderstorm that's coming through. They send out those notifications that you could lose power.
Well, I can tell you this, and I can tell you this, just CPS, the day the poll came out, CPS was the first one to call and said, hey, can we get that data? Mm-hmm. Because they wanted to use it to how they could be better, how they could benefit. What is the community saying? And you saw we had another winter storm the year after, right? And you saw the response was much better. Actually, in fact, they over communicated on that Lex one.
We also did polling on police. Remember the
police,
whole reining in police power. I think it was a Prop B is what it was called back then. Mm-hmm. And our poll showed it was really close. And we even had debate during COVID at Trinity with no crowd, just the police union, what was the name of the group that Ananda Thomas is with?
It wasn't Act for SA. It was
I can't remember.
Yeah.
And the city attorney.
Yeah.
And they just they answered our questions. And I think it was very I know that our streaming numbers for that were probably as high as any local thing that we've done streaming wise because there were so many people that were engaged in that vote.
Yeah, but to put a bow on your question is that's what brought Steve and I together was Bare Facts. And I can tell you,
it's only been 11 minutes since I asked the question.
Yeah, I know. Now we're going to answer it.
But that's how Steve and I became connected, and it's been a beautiful friendship and relationship. And I look to Steve for mentorship from time to time, and it's been great.
Along those lines, do you see a change in the way people consume news? There's a lot of when I moderated a debate between Gene Ortiz-Jones and Rolando Pablos during the mayoral runoff, there was a large percentage of people. We uploaded the whole thing to YouTube, but there was a higher percentage than I could have imagined who people watched it on their TV at home.
It's concerning. I mean, it's definitely been a concern to me that it's easier for advertisers to understand the TV ratings. When you talk streaming and you talk about how long a click is and how long, how long they're staying on average. But in the 30 years I was at KSAT, I certainly saw us move from over-the-air broadcast on your TV to streaming and digital. We do a lot of programs on digital right now that don't necessarily get on our air. We have a sports show that is just digital. So for me to start a streaming election night coverage 12 years ago, before that was even a thing, it's done very well, and I'm glad they're continuing to do it. They did it for the last election as well.
I don't know how people could stay up with election night without the live streaming that you guys did, because for a while there, I believe you were the only station that was doing that.
Right. Yeah. Yes. We definitely were the first to do it, and we're the only ones to do it, and the others have. I think it's a good thing the others have jumped on board, but there is a fracture of the viewing audience that's even more so than, when used to be, your three major broadcast networks and PBS, and, then cable came in and that fractured it. Now you've got streaming numbers and that came in and fractured it. And I think a lot of just media companies in general are trying to figure out how they make money in this current environment, or maybe make as much money as they used to. What concerns me is when I see local stations or so-called local stations that their anchors aren't in that city. There are newscasts in Virginia that are anchored from San Antonio.
Wow.
And you might have some local reporters and some local influence, but that's not like our definition of what local news is could be changing. And that's what concerns me, because I'm not necessarily a businessman. I'm a journalist. So for me, what matters is that the information is getting out there on our local communities, that there is somebody covering the local races and knows, the difference and who's the Republican and who's the Democrat and who's the independent and what they stand for and what it means for our community. And so that is concerning to me, because the landscape's changing.
Isn't it more not really driven from, say, the corporate side, but more on the user, the consumer? If more people are consuming on digital, isn't that what should be driving how people, what you guys showcase versus what you don't?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also just the measurements for streaming and who's streaming and when are they streaming and what are they streaming is not as built out as Nielsen, that can tell you, Demonte watched from this time to this time, and this is where the ratings go and things like that. So the landscape's changing.
Well, I was just telling Eddie this. For me, I don't want, when I'm consuming news, I don't want your opinion.
Yeah.
Just tell me the news. And then I will come up with my own opinions about what I think about what happened.
Yeah.
Right. And I think what we're seeing today, and people are getting turned off by it, and more people are coming to podcasts like Beyond the Bite and others, is that, just give me the information that I need, what happened, what's important for me to know, and then I'll make that decision. But when you have outlets that are already skewed, they already have an agenda, they're already trying to paint a picture on what we should be thinking, trying to craft their opinion for us. I think that's what's turning people off.
I think you're right. I think that I always saw my job as laying out both sides and letting people at home decide, realizing that there's always shades of gray in everything that we do. But I also think so many people think what I used to do is the same thing that Sean Hannity does, or the same thing that Rachel Maddow does, or the same thing. Those people are commentators. They're not news anchors. They're not necessarily even journalists. They're paid to give you their opinion. I'm not paid to give you my opinion. As a matter of fact, I don't think you should really care what my opinion is. At least when I was the anchor. Now I can give my opinion, Eddie. But back then, I would have been much more, reserved in what I said and didn't.
So now that you are free of the bonds and shackles of your journalistic career, you do have opinions, and thank you for sharing them. But I want to see and I want to hear about your new job. So you went to work for Perfected Claims,
yes,
which is the CEO is the infamous Christian Archer, who we've been talking about during this entire episode. So tell me how that happened and what you're actually doing.
Well, and that, when I said I wouldn't have left for just anything, Christian and I have been friends, and we've worked on a lot of, Phil Hardberger's campaign, Julian Castro's campaign, Joaquin Castro's campaign. I mean, so, city elections, so many different things, and bare facts. And at one point he said, hey, I've got this new thing I'm doing. It's a legal services firm, and we advocate for people that have been harmed, by corporations or neglect or different things.
And just to give an example, I saw the story that you did with this man who lost his house in, was it the Palisades fire?
Eaton. The Eaton
okay.
fires, yes.
And, it's been a long time, and he's just trying to, get his house back. And so, in a way, you're still in the storytelling business.
That's part of what I do. Yeah, I have always thought, when we talk about right and wrong and left and right and so many things, there's also so many stereotypes that people have and people that are voiceless that need a voice that we can advocate for. And so advocacy journalism has been something that I've always felt strongly about. And so I get to do that now really untethered. I mean, I get to tell the story of somebody like Ron Chino that you talked about. He talked about the morning after the Eaton fires trying to get to his house through the blockades. He comes around a corner thinking his house survived, and then he sees it in flames. And this was a fire that was started because the Southern California Edison didn't, repair their infrastructure that was hundreds of years old, and a spark landed on some brush when it should have landed on rock, and that's what started that fire. So basically, what Perfected does is we have Ron come in. We take care of insurance questions. We take care of his legal questions. We take care of his case, and then we partner with lawyers on the other side that all they have to worry about is the legal stuff and what happens in a courtroom. We're going to give Ron updates on what's going on with his case, on what's going on with settlements, what's going on with compensation programs, what's going on, with mental health programs, so many different ways to basically say, we're going to lead you through this often complicated process. And so for me, it fits perfectly into what I've always had a heart for, and that's advocating for people.
And if I can actually add some color and context to what he mentions by helping you through that process. When I came on, I was at the early part before it was perfected. This was an idea. Perfected was an idea Christian and the team had in their head of what Perfected was today, but we're building this from the ground up, right? So I left my family 45 days at a time to go to California and work on the Santa Rosa fires. I was a case auditor. So when he talks about helping these families, the way it was set up, if you can't prove loss, not only just loss, if you can't prove pain, you don't get paid. And so we had to call these families, and the families had to, on the phone with me, I had to type for them. They were so emotional, they couldn't write. So I said, look, don't even just talk, and I'll type it for you on what you went through. Can you imagine? You lost everything, everything, and some people lost lives. And you have to be on the phone with a stranger and go from start to finish. Did you see fire? Did you run? Were you screaming? Were you scared? Did you lose anybody? And I'm typing this, and we have to package that all up into a packet for this individual. And we have to submit that to the Fire Victims Trust. The governor of California and the Fire Victims Trust went into an agreement. This is how we're going to pay families, and this is a process. So what we did as an auditor, my team, is we helped make sure that all those documents were tight. So when they got it up there, that those families were sure to get paid. Because if they were missing one document, they did not decline the payment, right? And so this is incredible work. And I saw the vision of what they were building. And I feel when Christian brought on Steve, this is exactly what Perfected needed and was missing, because those stories need to be told. And what better storyteller than Steve Spriester to go tell those stories. And I did see that document. It was beautiful, man.
Thank you.
So it's great work.
It's got to be, an amazing transition, because just from a muscle memory and habit of going to the station, regularly to make this kind of, because now you're probably traveling more in this job than you were when you were at KSAT.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think in the first 2 months, I was in Georgia, I was in LA, I was in the Virgin Islands, I was in Las Vegas. I mean, I was just like all over the country. But I didn't have to wear a suit and tie, Eddie, so that's been a big adjustment for me. I have a bunch of suit and ties and mothballs now. I did host an event for Special Reach a few weeks ago, and it felt weird putting on the suit and tie. And that's why I had to tell people up there, I'm like, I'm not used to this. After 30 years, once you lose the suit and tie, it's hard to go back. And so it's also, election night. I called Demonte and Kevin Wolf, and we had big, long conversations about what we thought was going to happen because I missed that part of it. I missed just like, okay, this is what I think, and this is what you think, and all this, just having that conversation.
Demonte, you joined the Bridgewater Consulting Group. They are a consulting firm for utilities,
yes, sir,
power utilities and water utilities. So tell me about your role and what you're doing with Bridgewater.
So my role as Managing Director of Public Affairs for Bridgewater, it's essentially building relationships within the community, finding worthy causes to support. And obviously, we're a big part of CPS Energy's REAP program and the money they raise, the Residential Energy Assistance Program, and essentially helping Bridgewater navigate the public landscape when it comes to utilities. As far as relationship building and things like that, I help kind of set the strategy for who we need to talk to, where we need to go in terms of from a communication standpoint as well, and also on the relationship building side.
So locally here, the two public utilities are both municipally owned, right. CPS Energy and SAWS, mm-hmm. and I believe they're both clients of Bridgewater.
Well, we have a relationship with CPS Energy through Accenture, through their ERP transformation that they're going through right now. I think we do a little bit of work with SAWS, but it's not significant enough to say we have a relationship with them. So essentially, what we're trying to do is really help these entities like VIA, even VIA in the River Authority and places like that have these huge IT infrastructure ideas, and help them think through those problems and help them solve those problems of the future they have when it comes to either metering or the IT infrastructure.
Very good. Well, since we talked about Christian Archer so much, let's talk about him some more. He came out publicly not too long ago mentioning a poll that he had seen in the county judge's race showing Ron Nirenberg basically up by a 2-1 margin. I haven't seen the poll, so I don't know what it actually said or what the actual numbers were. But Steve, back to the point you were making earlier, is the horse race question that people like to grab onto. And the danger to that is when you do a poll, that's one moment in time. And what the campaigns are looking at is more of what are the issues that are moving the needle. If they're wanting to talk about public safety, maybe I should not be spending so much time on sidewalks and drainage because they want to hear more about what the plan is for public safety. But I'll just ask you how you guys see the county judge's race, since that's what Christian was discussing.
There were so many people, Eddie, that were wondering what would Ron Nirenberg do when his term was up. I mean, I think at different times people report, he's going to run for Senate. He's going to run for governor. He's going to, And I always thought Bexar County Judge is what he was going to run for. And the big question I had, though, is would he take on Peter Sakai? I'm not sure what kind of personal relationship they have or how closely they've worked in the past. And that was the biggest question for me. I thought it was a position he would want, but I didn't know if he was willing to take on Peter Sakai. Obviously, we have that question answered right now. There's part of me, though, that wonders if this isn't so much a race on issues as a race for who's the dominant political voice in our community, especially when you talk about some of the difficulties that Mayor Gina Ortiz-Jones has had in a leadership role.
There's been some general comments in the community that with the frustrations that people have with Mayor Jones, that now the question is, who's the adult in the room? For many years, that was Nelson Wolff. And there was a time that Ron Nirenberg did not have a very good relationship with Nelson. COVID changed that. Yep. Money's going to be an issue. Judge Sakai had $400,000 at the bank, and after Mayor Nirenberg left office, he had like $7,000. I have no doubts he's going to, raise money because he has a profile outside of San Antonio, so he'll be able to raise money for that. And we don't have limitations. Number two, I think Judge Sakai has a lot of strong support in the business community, but the business community is not the group that always shows up in a Democratic primary, which this battle is going to be in. So, Demonte, what other factors do you see happening in this primary?
Back to the poll. When it comes to the poll, I think people still don't really know what county government does. I think there's still, when we did the poll, I think 35% of people really knew what the county did. But I think when it comes to the race, I can't disagree with Steve when it comes to, I don't think this is an issue-based thing. I think that Judge Sakai comes to work every day trying to put his best foot forward, trying to do the best job he can. He works hard. And I think it just comes down to me is name ID and how popular the individual is. Now, there's been some leadership term has been thrown around about the lack thereof from that position. So I'm wondering if that's something that may come out in the race. But I think this is more of a battle of name ID. Obviously, Judge Sakai has been a longtime judge, very loved, well loved in this community. Ron has served this community admirably. I think during COVID, you wouldn't want any other mayor than Ron to be stable, steady, and focused on solving our issues and helping us get through that. And so I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, again, money raised and the name ID and how long that carries.
Yeah. If you take them in a vacuum, I think they're both popular. I think it does come down to the fact that, I will just say in my opinion only, sometimes when it's come to big issues, Judge Sakai hasn't wanted to step out there and give his opinion or step out there and maybe lead on some of these things. I think specifically of Project Marvel. The county did step up and say we're going to put it on the ballot and this is what we will do, but he hasn't necessarily been a big advocate for a new Spurs arena downtown. And now part of that is, in his defense, and I think this gets into how Judge Sakai sees things, the county's not picking up a big part of that bill. It's the city that's picking up the biggest part of that bill. Correct. So he doesn't think he should weigh in on an issue that's basically a city issue. I totally get that. But that was not Nelson Wolff. The city and the county leadership, I think, is used to a county judge that steps up and says, whether they have anything to do with it or not, what's your opinion on this? What's your opinion on that?
I think
what's your opinion on this?
I think to Steve's point, and my former boss, Judge Nelson Wolff, Judge Wolff, to your point, would take this person by the shoulders. Hey, we're going to make this happen, right? For the betterment of the greater San Antonio area, right? And Judge was able to see that vision. And if you're arguing, he's going to bring everybody together, and through that leadership, he's going to push it through and make it happen, right? And I think that's, what folks are used to, and I think, and it's almost, you could say it's unfair to Judge Sakai because he's his own person. He has his own leadership style and own way to get things done.
And that's what I was saying. That's what I think you're getting a look into how he sees things.
But people are used. I mean, you're talking, how long has Judge Wolff been? You're used to that. You're used to the way he's governed, and you're used to that leadership style, and it takes a while to kind of undo that and kind of get used to someone else doing that. But, he does also have the commissioners that he has to get to build. You talk about build consensus on council. You got to build consensus at the county level as well. And, some would argue that hasn't happened. Some would say that they like the approach. But I think, again, to answer your question, I think this vote will come down to who can reach more voters and who has that name ID that carries. I mean, everybody's going to talk about public safety. That's always, and I mean, even with a sidewalk, you can argue that that's a public safety hazard if you have no sidewalks, right? So it's going to come down to popular vote, in my opinion.
And that's one reason why a lot of campaigns never release their polling information, because I've actually seen voters get lulled into a sense of complacency.
Yeah.
I think that's on the team. That's on your team, man. Your comms team, whoever your strategist is, they're the ones that control that email list. They have to make sure that they're continuing to drive home that message that this race isn't over. We're ahead, but we're not. This is not the end of the race. So I think that's on the team to kind of continue to drive that message home when it comes to those polls. But also those polls, like you said, those are snapshots in time. I mean, that poll's good for maybe 3-4 weeks max before, you might have an earthquake that tears down a city and now everybody's priorities change and those opinions don't matter anymore. So,
well, it's interesting to me. Like I said, if you ask me today who's the favorite, I'd say Ron Nirenberg. But so much can happen between now and Election Day.
Absolutely.
And I've really been interested and intrigued how Judge Sakai has reacted to Ron Nirenberg getting in this race. I mean, it could have gone either way, where he was just like, oh, well, we'll see. Or he could have decided not to run. But he has dug in.
He has.
And he is ready for this political fight. And that is what intrigues me about this race, I think, more than just two, like I said, arguably two of the most popular politicians we have right now in the current office.
Well, I think they've both done great work for this community and deserving of this race. I just think it's a matter of the teams that they build, which is Laura's now with Ron, who was with Judge on his previous race. But it's going to be
Laura Barberena, campaign strategist.
Right. It's going to be who hires the best team, who raises the most money, and who can reach those voters with the right message.
It's interesting, though, because you said, Ron Nirenberg's done some great things. Judge Peter Sakai's done some great things.
Yes.
So that's what I mean. They're both popular. But to your point, Eddie, when Judge Sakai was running against Trish DeBerry and Trish DeBerry went negative, he got fired up.
He did.
And I think he was as effective in that moment as a candidate as I have ever seen him. And so that's when I say I'm intrigued now, because that's the Peter Sakai I'm seeing respond to this challenge. I think it's going to be an interesting
But you
race.
also don't want someone to jump in a race for you to be fired up. You should be fired up every day for your constituents. You should be fired up every day to go in and do what it takes to get the job done, right? You shouldn't just because I have a candidate, I'm going to do that. Now, I'm not saying this is the case, but it's what it seems like. But to my point earlier, I think Judge Sakai has done the job. I think there's things that have been lacking that from what I'm hearing that they want to see from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah.
But you could say the same thing for Ron as well, right?
But he's been very and Judge Sakai has been very clear he's not Nelson Wolff.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't govern like Nelson Wolff.
Yeah.
He's not going to get out there and talk about everything like Nelson Wolff. He was clear from day one on that. And I think the big question coming between these two is, does Bexar County want somebody that's going to be more of a Nelson Wolff style, or are they happy with the Peter Sakai style?
You think Ron will be more like Nelson Wolff?
Yes. I think and when I say more like Nelson Wolff, nobody can be
Those are big shoes,
Nelson
man.
Wolff.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about speaking out on issues that the county may not have direct impact on,
But they have influence.
but they have influence.
Yeah.
And I think Judge Sakai has been very cautious about using that influence. Nelson Wolff was not that cautious about using that influence. I think that comes from him being a former mayor. And
State rep.
State rep. I can see.
State senator.
I think Ron Nirenberg will step out and be more public about what he thinks we should.
This is really an important issue, because I think I wish a lot of other people would do that. And one of the people who does that and does it very well, and he's probably the least to get credit, is State Senator Jose Menendez.
Oh, man.
There are issues that have nothing to do with the Texas legislature, but they have his fingerprints on them because he realizes, hey, I can help a city council person here work on this issue. He helped Councilwoman Marina Aldrete Gavito on the dangerous dog issue. Yep. He didn't need to because it wasn't a legislative issue, but he did. And I think there are we need more leaders like that. And
Eddie, I think we have to get into a place to where, and this is just where our society is right now, where I don't have to like the person, but if they have a great idea and a great point, they're right. Just because I don't like them doesn't mean that they're wrong. And I think we've gotten away from that. Like, you can have a great idea, but because I'm on the wrong party, it's terrible.
Well, a couple of months ago, I had April Ancita on this show, and April made it a point to say that she's become very close to elected officials whose opponents she supported. But because these elected officials were the ones that won, she felt like our city won't be successful unless they're successful. So I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and help you, and let's get to work.
I think that's what makes San Antonio unique. Is I think that does happen more than it does in other places.
Yeah.
And that's, when you talk about people just working together for the betterment of the community, I think that does happen in San Antonio more than other communities. I'm not saying it happens as much as it should, but to April's example, yeah, I think it does happen where, April has a prominent business in this town, and it's to her benefit that things are
prospering.
Things are prospering. That we're a prosperous San Antonio. So I think that that's one of the things that attracts me about San Antonio.
I love April. She's done a lot of great things for the community, and I'm not going to say but. There are folks. When you say prosperous, that's to who, right? So her level, what she may seem prosperous, may be prosperous
Absolutely.
to Mrs. Jones or Mr. Martinez on the south side. Right?
Her comment was she wants to see the rising tide to lift all boats.
Well, let me be clear. People are always saying one of the things about Project Marvel is, this only helps the wealthy, super white collar. This is big money, good old guys, friends hanging, and what about the rest of us? What about our potholes? And what about things that neighborhoods that need to be revived? And I want to say when I support something, I never leave anybody behind. I actually believe this will benefit everybody, to include the neighborhoods, to include the potholes, right? And so if you want to look at it selfishly, I cannot do well unless everybody's doing well. I do not have a luxury brand. Used car sales are down right now because that demographic is having a hard time right now. I need those people to be successful. I need them to have good jobs, living in a good area, being able to afford these used cars. Even I don't selfishly benefit unless every single person is doing well.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yeah, now I haven't had a chance to kind of have a coffee or conversation with her, but from the body of work and the people I'm associated with, they say, well, who's supporting this? April. I always hear her name around a cause that she's supporting, which I think is phenomenal. All the work she's doing with UTSA and the Roadrunners, and it's great work. So kudos to her.
Yeah, I appreciate her putting herself out there on some of these issues that other business people maybe shy away from.
Since we were talking about building consensus at the Commissioner's Court, let's talk about consensus building or the lack thereof over at City Hall. On the 18th of December, City Council voted 6-5 to move our municipal elections from May to November in odd number years. So, Demonte, that's a very tight margin of one vote margin. The mayor has struggled to build consensus with this council, but she was able to eke this out by one vote. So what does that say to you?
It says that majority of the folks believe in moving the election and the benefits of that, right? And I think obviously there's been seems like there's been a lot of work done since the last vote to kind of build better relationships with her colleagues. Obviously she's been able to pull a few over to make sure she wins this vote. And so for me, that's a win in her column. And for me, it seems like she's found some way to build some consensus with some of her colleagues. If it's not all of them, at least it's a few that she's lost in previous votes.
Yeah, I think clearly this is a victory for the mayor, and I can't really think of another one that she's had since Election Day. But it still was really close, 6-5. And there are a lot of, I wonder how much was consensus and how much was this is just a really good idea. But she clearly was championing this idea and move it to November. So the idea is not an unpopular one. I think you can certainly paint this as progress for Mayor Jones and a victory for the mayor. But I'm going to need to see more before I'm convinced she's figured out how to build a consensus.
We've talked a little bit about things that have happened this year. We didn't talk about the UTSA UT Health merger, but that was a big one for San Antonio.
Huge.
We saw the Missions move forward with their plan to build a new baseball stadium downtown. We saw the passage of Propositions A and B, so the rodeo is going to grow to a year-round anchor tenant out there at the Frostbank Center. The Spurs are going to build a new arena downtown. My wife, Christina, and I are chairing the capital campaign for the restoration of the Alameda Theater, so that's coming up. You see the phase 2, I don't know that that's an appropriate name for it, but phase 2 of the Pearl East of Broadway, is now going to get underway. So there's a lot that's happening in our city, and I think there's a lot of excitement around it. But so my question to the two of you is, what are you looking forward to in 2026? Steve, I'll start with you.
So there's one of the things I'm looking forward to is I had so many people tell me that there are people ready to invest in this community, but they wanted to see what happened on Project Marvel. I want to see some of that investment from businesses happen. I want to see our city continue to grow and prosper. And like you said, I want to see all boats rise in this tide. And it's time for that to happen. I mean, I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to argue that San Antonio needs better paying jobs, affordable housing, certain core values that San Antonio doesn't have right now. I want to see that. What I'm curious about in 2026 is how dug in will our current mayor be when it comes to Project Marvel. She has talked about, putting it up to another city election. She's talked about opposing it and doing some other things, calling it back and going back to the drawing board. I want to see if she does that, or is she decided that she's going to work with, the Holt family and some of the local owners of the Spurs to try and make this the best for both worlds?
I think it's necessary, and I would agree with you. It's going to be interesting to see how she proceeds on that front.
Yeah.
Demonte, what do you see in 2026?
I have to kind of peel off of what Steve said about lifting all boats. I've been in this community since 2005. And I haven't seen it all, but I've seen quite a bit since 2005. And I really hope that we can get to a place to where we're really helping those folks that really need it. COVID exposed what we already knew, and being able to continue to see us providing support for those families that really need it. I'm really looking forward to VIA continuing their green and silver line. I think it's silver line, green line. Is that what it is?
Green and silver. That's
really going to part of that conversation of all rising tides, lifting all boats. Looking forward to CPS Energy continuing to, I think it's a 3-year process to kind of implement their new ERP and how they deliver progress for customers and things like that. But I think that's what I'm looking forward to. What I'm hoping that we can come together is, and shout out to Marissa Bono we've had a lot of talk about San Antonio has to agree what our problem is, What is San Antonio's biggest problem? And it's poverty, right? And I think every entity is doing what they can. Every entity is doing what they can with their respective businesses when it comes to poverty. They're addressing it in their own way, right? In their own silos. Perfect example is the arena vote. I don't think it was fair for folks to throw generations worth of poverty and issues onto the Spurs, onto that vote. Now, I do think the Spurs share some responsibility in helping us solve these poverty issues, but it's not solely on them. So I think what I'm hoping to see in the future is that every stakeholder in this community agree that poverty is our issue. And how can we collectively come together and solve that issue together? And I think until we do that, we're going to continue to recycle and repeat the same issues over and over and over. When you poll and when you put overlay maps, you always see the same communities with the same issues, with the same problems. Until we all agree that this is our issue and that we all are willing to collectively work on those together, then I think we'll start to see incremental progress towards in that direction. But overall, I'm proud of San Antonio and where we've come, but I think we need to get really serious about what our real issues are.
There's still miles to go.
Yes.
There's, if you go back to I think it was a CBS broadcast in 1966 or 68,
Yep.
That did a special on the poverty in San Antonio. Our poverty rate really hasn't changed.
This was an issue that was brought up in the mayor's race. I mean, I remember Rolando Pablos quoting the same numbers you did, that the poverty rate hasn't changed in San Antonio in 20 years, 30 years, 40 years.
We keep doing the same thing.
Why? And it was talked about, and Mayor Jones talked about it. But I can't think of anything since pre-K for essay that was a policy that was meant to address it. And I think it's one thing to talk about it when you're getting elected, but what do you do when you're in office?
Well,
What is one thing that you do to make a difference?
Well, we did talk about this. You said, Eddie asked, what is the question on the race, on the county race and on the city race? We talked about it's a publicity thing, but why can't it be a poverty message?
That's my question.
Yeah.
But it's not just a message.
Yeah.
So
I'll
give me a program.
give
Give me something. Give me something that you think will
now
make
that you're in the seat
that you think will make a marked difference.
Well, that's why I said we have to everyone has to agree that that's the problem.
Right. Because that's what I'm saying.
If not,
I think we agree on that. I was just saying I haven't seen anybody even make it a policy. Like it's an issue during our elections, but nobody's putting a policy forth to even do what you're talking about. It's
right.
like, and to Demonte's point, we talk about it during elections, but we don't really talk about it any other time.
No.
And that's why I said, pre-K for essay was supposed to be a step in that direction, but we're not even fully funding that right now. So that's what I mean. And that was Julian Castro, who was several mayors ago, and I haven't even seen anything put on the table. It's been talked about.
Well, to come back on that a little bit, it also goes back to how pre-K for essay is funded. But also you could say VIA has a role in poverty as well, right? And so which one are you going to do first? When I left home for the mill, I graduated high school, and I'm the oldest of 10 kids, single mother. And there was a community college 10 minutes from me. I didn't think that was for me. I didn't even know what it was. I was like, well, we don't go there.
Right.
So I felt my only option was the military. So which is why I walked in the recruiter station without my family even knowing. I saw a Be All You Can Be commercial, and I said, man, I need money and I need food. I'm hungry. I think the military would take care of me. And I went and signed up without any permission because I had the imposter syndrome. I didn't think that was for people like us and the way we grew up. And so therefore now I've had a great career in the military, and I would never change that. But it validates Eddie's point that even though we have programs, some folks like myself at that time didn't think that was for me. But I also think back to our point is once you're in office, let's stop talking about, hey, we need to solve poverty. Let's start seeing some tangible where I can see it, I can touch it when it comes to really helping people, uplift people. But also, people actually have to also want the help as well.
Well, what this is reminding me of, this episode, is the late, great Bill Sinkin, who used to have a regularly scheduled gathering, And the first time I went, he said, Eddie, welcome to our meeting where we complain about everything and solve nothing. But at least we made an attempt. Demonte Alexander, Steve Spriester, thank you guys both for coming on. Demonte, always great to have you back. And Steve, welcome. You're going to have to be a regular on the show.
All right, good.
Thank you, Eddie.
Good.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Steve.
Good to see you, Demonte, as always.
Yes.